President Trump announced this weekend that he will allow thousands of classified documents on JFK's assassination to be released by Thursday. The president tweeted, "Subject to the receipt of further information, I will be allowing as president the long blocked and classified JFK files to be opened." These files are currently being held by the National Archives and Records Administration. 25 years ago, Congress mandated the release of the documents, barring any pushback from a president. The White House said in a statement, "The president believes that these documents should be made available in the interest of full transparency, unless agencies provide a compelling and clear national security or law enforcement justification otherwise." Joining me from Miami is Gerald Posner. He is an investigative journalist and the author of Case Closed, Lee Harvey Oswald and the Assassination of JFK. Gerald, thanks for being with us. So, more than 3,000 of these documents have never been fully seen. First of all, do you expect that this Thursday deadline will be met and that we will see them?
Yeah, I think the Thursday deadline will absolutely be met. The Archives has been preparing for this for a few years now, knowing the deadline was coming up. And when we say 3,000 files, I mean, there could be tens of thousands of pages, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pages. In the past, when the Archives has said we're releasing 10 files, people think it's going to be 10 documents, but it turns out to be several thousand pages. So I think there's going to be a lot of material in this. It's going to take a long time for people to go through it carefully.
How are they going to be released, and what are historians like yourself going to be looking for in these files?
They'll be released under a way the Archives has tried to do it recently. In July, they released 400 of these documents as a test run, sort of a pre-release, and they released them digitally, so they were available to everybody on their servers, and immediately the servers crashed in about 3 seconds. They were unavailable on and off for a couple of days. I would imagine that with this release, with people trying to get in from around the world, the great news is open access. The bad news is open access, because it means it's going to be hard to get a connection and get the files. What I think serious researchers, scholars, historians, and journalists are going to be looking for is a period about 7 weeks before Kennedy was murdered, when Oswald was in Mexico City trying to get to Cuba. We're going to try to find out what the CIA may have learned about him in their own surveillance of the Cubans and Soviets at the time, what they may have hidden in their files and not reported to the FBI. That's a rich area, because it's been the CIA for decades which has fought the release of these final files, together with the State Department. And they're not getting their wish this time, because they have appealed to President Trump to keep some files secret, but it looks like Trump, with that tweet, is going to set them free on Thursday.
Do you expect there to be anything groundbreaking? And you bring up this Cuba connection, which, of course, the JFK assassination is rife with conspiracy theory. Do you expect to see any illumination on whether there was a Cuba connection, and wouldn't that be groundbreaking?
Yeah, I mean, groundbreaking for people who study the case, but not groundbreaking in terms of the general public. And what I mean by that is, I think that the public hears about the Kennedy files, the last files are about to be released, and the expectations are very high. They expect, for a bad analogy, a smoking gun, some blockbuster, something so big that it's going to prove a second gunman on the grassy knoll, or they're going to find out that J. Edgar Hoover was involved in a plot to kill the president. That type of blockbuster that turns the case upside down, that's not going to be there. But you are right when you say significant historical news, and it goes to this issue. A few months after the assassination, a senior member of the American Communist Party traveled to Havana and met with Castro. Castro sort of bragged to him that when Lee Harvey Oswald was in the Cuban mission 7 weeks before the assassination, Oswald had boasted that he was going to kill Kennedy. Now, what Castro didn't know, no one knew, was that that senior member of the Communist Party was an FBI informant. It's a great story. He went back and told the FBI, so it's in the FBI files. Now the question is, do the files about to be released this Thursday show that Oswald, in fact, had made that boast at the Cuban mission? And if he did the CIA in its surveillance of the Cuban mission pick that up? If they did they tell the FBI when Oswald came back to the U.S.? Obviously not. They do what the CIA always does. They take information, put it in the corner, and tell no one else. But that would be very embarrassing for the CIA. That would be a big disclosure that wouldn't change who shot Kennedy, but would change our feeling about what we knew about the potential assassin beforehand, and what American agencies should do.
And whether it could have been prevented.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. This is something, you know, I covered this on 9/11, the extent to which the CIA knew that two of the people who eventually turned out to be hijackers came into the country and told no one. So the question here is, if the CIA knew that he was a threat possibly to the president, he comes back in it. He's just turning 24 years old in Texas. He lands a job at a place where a couple of weeks later the president's motorcade is going to pass in front of it. I mean, the FBI and the CIA ran for cover after the assassination. They didn't want anything to do with Oswald. They hid information. They lied to the Warren Commission. There was a cover-up. I've always said, even though I think Oswald did it, these agencies covered their own bureaucratic behinds. Not a murder, but their reputation. The final tatters of their reputation may be exposed in these files coming out of the archives later this week.
Well, that sounds pretty interesting to me. Gerald Posner, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.